Hi, everyone. We'll get started. So I'd like to first acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, upon whose ancestral lands the UTS City campus now stands. I pay respect to the elders, both past and present, acknowledging them as the traditional custodians of knowledge for this land and as people of great ingenuity and innovation. Hi, and welcome to today's panel, Careers in a Green Economy. My name is Dr. Christina, and I'm the Director of the Bachelor of Sustainability and Environment at UTS, a degree we launched this year that trains students in the environmental, economic, social, and cultural dimensions of sustainability and equips them with skills in tackling sustainability issues across different sectors and industry. Sustainability is one of the biggest global issues of our time, and as such, work in sustainability is growing across all sectors around the world. So this degree can be combined with the Bachelor of Business, the Bachelor of Management, the Bachelor of Economics, the Bachelor of Science, or the Bachelor of Health Science. And it only adds one extra year to the study in these degrees, so a total of 4 years of full-time study, for example. So it equips students with skills in a range of skills: literacy, program evaluation, systems analysis, critical and creative inquiry, community engagement, collaborative teamwork, project management, and many others. So it's unique in its interdisciplinary structure. It's the first combined degree offering in Australia for sustainability studies at the undergraduate level. So it adds specialist knowledge on environmental and economic and social sustainability to the partner degree, giving graduates an added edge in the job market. So our program is also committed especially to providing students with local and international industry engagement and experience throughout the degree, making them job ready once they graduate. And this panel today highlights the value we place on industry engagement and insight here at UTS. We have 4 panelists with us to discuss the growing career pathways in sustainability, both in the government, NGO and business sectors, and including in the Asian region. So before I introduce the panel, just some quick housekeeping. So please put all your questions in the Q&A box. And as well, this webinar is being recorded and will be available to view. And you can contact us for further information after this panel. So I want to kick off the panel by introducing our panel members. We have with us Brendan Barber, CEO of Rainforest Rescue, a global not-for-profit partnering with government agencies, NGOs and businesses to save and restore Australian and international rainforests. Starting with a degree in environmental studies from UC Santa Cruz, he cut his teeth with Greenpeace International on the Rainbow Warrior and then ran the Victorian State Office for Greenpeace Australia. Over the past 25 years, he's worked in both the social profit and for-profit sectors, from startups to S&P 500 companies to NGOs, large and small. He is an organizational engagement and development professional, supporting and driving environmental and social justice initiatives. He's joined by Christina, a multi-skilled marketing and communications professional with over 12 years of experience working with corporate market leaders, as well as small and medium-sized entities on an international scale, including her own startup business, Indian Isaac, which is a sustainable kids clothing brand that aims at combating fast fashion with sustainably sourced and ethically manufactured wardrobe staples. And we also have Kamala, an assistant professor in public policy and management at Sri Sri University in India and director of the university's Climate Change and Sustainability Center. He has been trained in climate change education from the Nobel laureate Al Gore's The Climate Reality Project in the US-India office, and has conducted several training programs in areas of environment, communication, public policy, higher education, and sustainability. And rounding off the panel, we have a current Bachelor of Sustainability and Environment student, Cyan Hamilton, currently taking the degree with the Bachelor of Business. She is also working at the UTS Institute of Sustainable Futures as an administrative assistant. Cyan is enjoying exploring the sustainability field while being introduced to people with a variety of passions as she uncovers areas of interest. So our panel is facilitated by my colleague, Professor Kate Barclay from the School of International Studies and Education, and who is also one of the teaching staff in the degree along with myself. She is a leading social scientist researching in the social aspects of fisheries at a time when industry and government are increasingly recognizing the importance of the human dimensions in sustainable fisheries. So a warm welcome, everyone, and thank you for your time today. And I'll hand it over to you, Kate.
Thanks, Christine. I'd like to kick it off with Brandon first. Could you, in about 3 minutes, give us an overview of your job that you do now, as well as a brief history of your own career history and what led you to having a career in the green economy?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm the CEO of Rainforest Rescue, and Rainforest Rescue is in the business of, primarily we've shifted our focus to be less broad and really honed in on the Daintree rainforest in far north Queensland, which is the most ancient of rainforests and Australia's largest and most biodiverse. I originally thought I was going to be a psychologist like my dad, and while I was at UC Santa Cruz as a freshman, I was just falling asleep. I was in my dorm room, which I shared with Ted. And as I was falling asleep, I sat upright and I said out loud, "The planet, I have to help the planet." And Ted said, "Shut up, go back to sleep." And the next day I changed my major and became an environmental studies student. And my first job out of uni was with Greenpeace. And as you heard, I ran the Greenpeace office in Victoria, and then I wound up developing Greenpeace's first website, which was, someone had to do it, and it was the new thing back then. And then I took some time to play in the whole sort of new media world and learned a lot about brand strategy and marketing, and wound up jumping back into the good fight, as I like to call it, as development director at Rainforest Action Network, and then at Amazon Watch, focusing on the Amazon rainforest, as a fundraiser. And I didn't realize that fundraising was cool, but it's activism, and it's a beautiful nexus point for engaging people around, what they care about. So that's me, and that's how I got here. I'm really excited to be part of Rainforest Rescue and really happy to share it with you.
Thank you, Brandon. Kamala, could you give us an overview then of your job and your career trajectory and what led you to having this career?
Thank you. This is Kamala. I'm now working at Sri University. I studied political science, then international relations, then public policy at Monash University in Australia. And that kind of training was very, very useful for coming back to India and thinking of making a contribution. What I like about Australian education, that they actually instill that confidence at one level, and also that responsibility that whatever training and education you're getting, you have to make a difference. So make a difference to your country, make a difference to your community, make a difference to your place where you're studying, your alma mater. So in that way, that was the inspiration from Monash, where I came back to Odisha, my native state, and continued to work on public policy awareness creation, international relation awareness creation, and obviously something which is you cannot leave or ignore is climate change and sustainability. And Odisha, my state, which is a coastal state, is largely affected each year through several disasters. And now in the last 20 years, Odisha has emerged as a disaster management leader in Asia Pacific. My chief minister, Mr. Naveen Patnaik, has made fantastic models, which the United Nations and others are following now. So this is the backdrop and context where I joined the new university, Sri University, to develop the Center for Climate Change and Sustainability. So my training in social sciences, political science, economics, law, and governance helped me to navigate the interdisciplinary nature of climate change and sustainability to an extent where I am a little bit more capable or perhaps competent to engage with the subject at the government level, at the community level, at the level of management, means business leaders, so that kind of education is interdisciplinary, and I'm very happy that UTS has launched just as an interdisciplinary program, which is absolutely, absolutely important and fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamala. Now let's ask Christina if you could give us a quick 3-minute overview of your job and how you came to be running your small company.
Thank you, Kate. My Australian journey actually started 12 years ago when I came here as an international student from Germany. And after I graduated, I've been working across a variety of different marketing and communication roles from, well, for small startups, but also bigger global conglomerates. And having worked for the corporate world all my life, I really felt the urge to do something more purpose-driven. I realized, I needed to do something that would make the world a better place. And when my son Isaac arrived 3 years ago, it truly changed my outlook on life. And I felt like all of a sudden I was responsible, not just for myself anymore, but also for him and his kids and their kids. And then parallel to that, I realized how much or how fast kids were growing out of their clothing. And I started looking into more sustainable brands that I could buy from. But to my surprise, there were really only a handful that I could turn to. And then I started doing some serious research into the fashion industry. And I found that the fashion industry was responsible for over 10% of global carbon emissions, which is just so bad. And it's also the second largest consumer in terms of water, the world's water supply, and over 75% of supply chain textiles end up in landfill. So there is just so much waste associated with that industry, and it's really a dirty business. And look, it got worse because if we think of polyester, which is just a fancy term of plastic, right? We wash that in our washing machine, and it actually releases tiny little microplastics into the waterways, which then end up in our oceans, and fish ingest that plastic, and in turn they end up on our plates, and we eat the fish, and we also eat the plastic. So in order to disrupt the fast fashion industry, I started my own business to provide parents with a more eco-friendly alternative to some of the fashion brands or kids clothing that was out there. And at Indian Isaac, it's our main aim to change consumerism and to reduce fashion waste to landfill by educating parents and the public about the impact their choices have on the planet. And we only sell brands that have really strict sustainability practices in place, and brands that align with our own values, and brands that look after their employees, their workers, and their communities and the planet as a whole. And we also offer a buyback guarantee of over 100 brands that we define are sustainable, to keep more fashion in the circular economy, and to reduce fashion waste going to landfill. And I think the circular economy model is really critical when we talk about sustainability, because in a circular economy, there is no waste. And looking at some of the sustainable businesses I've been working with over the past years, it's really something we need to adopt and educate more about. Because it looks at, the sourcing of the materials all the way through to the end of life disposal of a product. And ultimately, fashion shouldn't cost lives, and it shouldn't cost the planet. And it's as simple as that.
Thank you, Christina. Sayan, I'd like to come to you now. If you could tell us in a few minutes about yourself and what made you enroll in the Bachelor of Sustainability and Environment here at UTS.
Thanks, Kate. Hi, everyone. I'm Sian, and as you would have heard, I am currently studying in UTS's Bachelor of Sustainability and Environment, and I decided that I was going to pair that with a Bachelor of Business, so that's what I'm currently doing. I'm in my first year at the moment, but I actually didn't originally choose this degree when I first came out of uni, so I was originally at a different uni just studying business, and then I just wasn't feeling inspired enough for my liking. So I started searching around, and I actually found UTS's brand new degree online. So I had a look and it looked amazing. It was hands-on and it looked like the teaching team was passionate and from a variety of different areas. And it just looked amazing. But I was already in a degree, so I just closed the tab and moved on with my life until I was there 3 months later, still thinking about that degree. So I decided that this is exactly what I was looking for. I had been slowly becoming more interested in sustainability in my final years of high school, doing little projects, and slowly it was consuming my life. And I decided that that was my passion and where I wanted to go. So I dropped my old degree and I chose to come to UTS, and I'm very excited to be part of this degree and very proud because I think it's a very special degree and have no regrets of choosing this path at all.
Thank you. I'm very glad to hear it. Okay, now I'd like to ask Brandon and Christina a couple of question about the Australian perspective, and then I'll move on to a slightly different question to ask Kamala. So for Brandon and Christina, companies and organisations are increasingly seeing sustainability as a core part of their business. And how can you see this in your industry or the organisations that you work with? And could you give some examples? So this time I might start with Christina first and then move to Brandon.
Thanks, Kate. Yes, I feel like the past decade has certainly been all about awareness and the public waking to the problems of plastic pollution and global warming. And that was critical because in order to improve or lessen your environmental footprint, you have to understand it first. And I've certainly seen a shift from businesses transforming their entire supply chains to become more sustainable, and much more transparency as well from businesses through their annual sustainability reports, or give back programs like, you know, donating to conservation organizations like Rainforest Rescue, or planting more trees. And the last 5 to 10 years have seen extreme growth in the sustainability space across all disciplines, not just fashion, but also, you know, renewable energy and packaging. And I've also witnessed the rise of B Corps, or so-called benefit corporations, who are new types of entities, and they are not for profits, but they are purpose-driven businesses who donate percentages of their sales or profits to conservation organizations or people in need, or they become certified carbon neutral to give back as much as they take from the planet. But also, well, despite the rise of conscious companies, I also think that there is a lot of greenwashing across all industries, meaning that some companies make very vague or faulty sustainability claims purely because they're marketing hooks to drive more sales. And I think now more than ever, it's really important that we educate the public around that, and that we equip them with the knowledge to combat greenwashing. And for fashion, for example, or in fashion, it's really simple. You would just look out for certifications. And if a brand can't provide any certifications, don't buy from that company. You know, people can now put their wallet where their mouth is. They can use the purchasing power to drive positive change. And I've certainly seen that shift, and particularly with the next generation, Generation Z. 2 of their main priorities are intersectional environmentalism and climate change. And they stand alongside Greta Thunberg. They take it to the streets. They have witnessed the decay of our world, and, you know, the impacts global warming has already had on our nature. Like, just look at all the natural disasters that are happening everywhere in the world. So I've definitely witnessed change, and I think sustainability is no longer just a trend. It's become a mindset and a way of living, and people are ready to fight for change and to make this world a better place. And I've seen it in form of increasing sales, but I've also noticed it from all the overwhelmingly positive feedback we get through our social media communities and through letters I get from extremely happy customers. yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Brandon, I wonder if you could give us on your perspective on how sustainability is part of a core part of business now.
Sure. Christina, that was such a beautiful answer. I feel like you're an excellent example of the new wave of businesses. You know, that the environmental organizations, you're better than some of the environmental organizations were 10 years ago. That was really inspiring and really good to hear. So it's a funny question for me because Rainforest Rescue, you know, helps other businesses deepen their sustainability. So as Christina was saying, you know, businesses that want to give back, businesses that want to, you know, be part of the solution to the challenges that our planet, that our biosphere, that our ecosystems are facing. You know, it's not easy to to start an environmental initiative that's going to make a big difference. There's a great commercial. I want everyone to go to YouTube and look up Rainforest Alliance Follow the Frog, particularly those of you that are in marketing. You'll love it. You know, you don't have to give up your job and go to the Amazon and, you know, help organize indigenous peoples to fight the oil companies. You know, Greenpeace will do that, or Amazon Watch will do that. And you know, Rainforest Rescue has a really robust business partnerships program that enables businesses to be part of our work. And it's a real partnership, and we have different types of relationships that people can engage with. You can have, you know, tier level partners where people can be, you know, all the way up to a platinum level based on how much money their organization gives, which equates to the number of trees that we plant and then maintain over a couple of years until they form a canopy and are good on their own. There's the Canopy Club, which means that businesses can just put whatever they want really into our program on an annual basis. Then there's 1% for Rainforest Rescue, which is 1% of profits. But those are all examples of businesses are hungry for being part of the solution. And you know, for too long, businesses have been part of the extractive, exploitative system, and it's killing us. And it's clear now that that's the case, and that's why you guys are looking at the sustainability discipline. And it's really good news, and it's really exciting to see that nonprofit organizations no longer have to rely just on individuals or government grants or philanthropic grants, but businesses are becoming a real force for good and a force for positive environmental change and sustainability. The reference to B Corps, I think, is a really important one. If y'all don't know what B corporations are, literally just go Google it. B Corps are businesses that want to give back, and instead of your triple bottom line, it's the quadruple bottom line. So it's good for people and planet, and it gives me great hope. And B Corps started in the U.S., but now they're all over the world. And Australia has a really great growing community of B corporations.
Thanks, Brandon. Kamala, could you give us a perspective from Asia on this shift towards sustainability being part of the core business of many organizations now?
Yes, sustainability or green jobs are going to be important, and by 2030, an assessment or estimate by International Labour Organization says around 24 million people will be required in the sustainable economy to perform green jobs. And that is mainstream 24 million jobs. And that is huge at one level, because there are ancillary green jobs will be required as well. So, and all companies will be transferring or shifting their base from a fossil fuel base to a renewable base, and from a carbon base to a decarbonized space. So is this journey which has started happening with major industries that are greenwashing? Definitely, yes, we agree with that. But certainly industries are very, very keen taking this forward, and government, civil society. Asia is going to gear up after 2024, you'll see more opportunities coming out, and more people who will be graduating from your institute and university will get the umpteen number of opportunities, not only just to intern, work, research, learn, and contribute, but to get a job, and also perhaps become entrepreneurs, climate entrepreneurs or sustainability entrepreneurs. So these are certain opportunities in emerging. I can take the case of India. As I can see, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been very, very keen on sustainability, as he's one of the founders with the French President, the then President, International Solar Alliance. So solar is becoming very huge in India, and slowly it is very surprising that the economic policy they have followed is actually rising the price of the fuel, but at the end, they are actually de-incentivizing going for petrol and diesel, and electric car, electric vehicle, EVs are becoming very important. And we have several motor companies, both four-wheelers, two-wheelers, and three-wheelers, but we do not have enough people who understand how society, economy, government, and industry interact with each other in a sustainability context. Not have enough people. And social responsibility is another sector where there will be going to be a lot of requirement of people who are trained in the triple bottom line, people, profit, and planet. So something like what you are giving here is brilliant. And Asia, that includes Indonesia, Malaysia, China, India, and South Asia, you see a lot of jobs are going to come up in there, because Asia is very keen to catch up with the developed world.
Thank you, Kamala. Sian, I'd like to ask you now what your career aspirations are and how you think a double degree might help you with this. And also any experiences you've had so far in exploring professional pathways within the degree.
People often ask me when I tell them that I'm doing sustainability what I'd like to do. And I have to be honest, at this point, I have no idea. I'm okay with that right now, considering I'm only in my first year. I'm not too stressed about it. And what makes it even less stressful is that the degree has already, within 1.5 semesters, opened my eyes to so many possibilities. So I do know is that I'd like to make sustainability more accessible to everyone, because I've seen in a lot of conversations I've had that people are somewhat paralyzed at times by people call it eco-anxiety, or just not being sure exactly what to do because it's such an overwhelming and such a large issue. So making it accessible to people, individuals, and also to businesses. So by studying my double degree with business, it allows me to understand how businesses operate in the status quo and how that might be able to change by pairing it with my sustainability degree. So I have a good base in business, and then I can use that to have quite an impactful career, I hope. But also in the degree, we've already had an industry panel in one of our subjects. So we had a panel with people from Deloitte. There was someone from Health Infrastructure New South Wales, and just there were a few other people in there that just showed us that there are lots of different paths that we can take with our sustainability degree, and also depending on which other double degree you do. So a lot of the science students found it helpful to see which science pathway they might take, or health science or management as well. So I don't know is the answer, but being surrounded by lecturers and also panelists and different opportunities to see what the possibilities are certainly makes it a lot less stressful and quite exciting as well.
Thank you, Sian. So this question is for Brandon, Kamala, and Christina. Over the next 5 years, what do you think are the key sustainability challenges that organisations will need to grapple with? And what kind of jobs will these challenges create? And what kind of skills or qualifications will people seeking those jobs need to have? So I might start this time with Kamala and then go to Brandon and Christina. Kamala?
I think a lot of job opportunities are already happening because of COVID. Also, there is a great awareness around the world that our health, our planetary health, and what we consume matters a lot for our survival. Not just our survival of the next generation. So that is one. The COVID has made many more people go eco-wage, organic wage, and become vegetarian at some places, and they have started plantations. So these awarenesses are actually dawning or happening among the consumers. If I take that work from the market, so if I'm a consumer, if I'm aware, so greenwashing will be lesser. So that one thing will be that we'll be forcing the businesses and the governments to take action on sustainability agenda, which is 2030. That is one thing I'm seeing. And second trend, I'm very hopeful that the companies will be self-declaring that these products are eco-friendly, and they will be certainly certainly going the biodegradable way, wherever it is possible. This is point number 2. Point number 3, there will be a buyback arrangement. That is what the consumers are asking for. For example, it's a footwear which is not usable, it should be taken back by the footwear company. So buyback arrangements. So circular economy is going to be there. And sustainable fashion, and that is going to be very, very important. So apart from the automobile industry, the fossil industry, the coal, renewable energy, sustainable fashion is going to be very, very fashionable in the days to come. So people who are skillful to navigate through economics, through environment impact assessment, through community engagement, through awareness creation, policy analysis, kind of understanding how climate change is happening, discussions at the diplomacy level, and they are the ones who will be best suited to make any difference or make any change or advocate for better. And skill set will be definitely communication and environmental awareness, community organization, fundraising, and all that, and definitely an innate awareness of the international thing that is happening around the world and your connection with the world as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Christina, what are your perspectives on this question of challenges over the next 5 years and the kinds of skills and things needed?
So I think while the last decade was all about, awareness, the next 5 to 10 years will be all about speed and acceleration. And the early adopters have adopted a long time ago. So I feel like now we're going mainstream and we need to get everyone on board and really future-proof our being. But I also think that there are other challenges that we're facing that you might not always link to sustainability directly. For example, in 2020, the International Women's Day promoted the message "An equal world is an enabled world" to encourage people to fight bias and empower women, because when you empower women, you empower communities, because women tend to share their knowledge and empower others with their knowledge. And I think in regards to fashion, it's important to note that most factory workers are women, and they're working long hours, and they're often working in really dangerous conditions. And they're working for brands like Zara and H&M, brands we buy from every day, right? So they might not get paid a living wage. And when you buy from these brands, you basically support the exploitation of these workers. And women shouldn't have to risk their lives to be able to feed their families. I believe that gender parity and social justice globally are two issues that brands have to address and have to get behind to not just stay economically or competitive, but also to show to consumers who make their clothes, because consumers would want to know. And as for the kind of job in demand, or who I think will be increasingly more important, I think that, and that also might address Sian's comment around, not knowing what career she can see for herself. I wouldn't stress too much, because I think with a sustainability degree, you can almost do anything. You can go into any industry and create change. And any industry will have to reinvent itself over the next 3 to 5 years to mitigate climate change. And you could work as a sustainability manager or a sustainability consultant. And again, you can do that for any industry. But I also see roles in sustainable design or sustainable architecture increase over the next decade, because we will have to build more sustainable cities that look after, or that feature urban farms and energy conservation, but also environmental scientists who understand and who can predict the trajectory we're on and how we can change that trajectory to combat climate change. And last but not least, I wanted to say we also need more influencers like teachers, academics, but also politicians who understand climate change and who can implement legislation and empower others to follow. So I think, yeah, as soon as we understand the impact global warming and plastic pollution has on our cities, on animals, but also the future of our children, you know, we might not throw away that pair of jeans next time. We might actually fix it and keep it for another year or two. And look, in the end, no one is perfect, but understanding the problem is the first and I think the most important step towards addressing the problems that we're facing today. And we need more inspiring leaders to create the change that we want to see.
Thanks. Brandon, what do you think the big challenges are in the next 5 years and the kinds of jobs that will be associated with that?
Oh, wow. The kinds of challenges in the next 5 years. Christina, that was excellent. You're hired. I think one of the jobs, well, I think sustainability has a place everywhere, right? Like, you know, once upon a time, we thought that politicians would do the right thing if only there was enough support to push them in the right direction. And I believed that they were generally good people who were trying to do a good job for the people they represented. That would be lovely if that were the case. It does not seem to be so. And it's going to take all of us to move the needle, you know, towards sustainability. And I have a real problem with the word sustainability. We were talking about it earlier. It's just such a boring, vanilla, beige kind of word. Like, you know, when do we get to thriving? You know, well, we've got a ways to go. But having sustainability in the ethics at the core of every business is essential. Just as I used to believe that all politicians were good people trying to serve the people they represented, I actually believe that that everybody has a stake in doing the right thing, and it's becoming quite clear with global warming and the kinds of terrible news that we're seeing on a regular and increasingly frequent basis. So yes, you know, you can do more with sustainability at your core for a greener, healthier planet so that we can all thrive into the future, 7 generations, if you take sustainability with you. And there are all kinds of great jobs that have emerged that didn't exist 10 years ago. I mean, who thought there would be a chief sustainability officer at every major corporation now? But as Christina said, you know, it's about leadership. You know, we need leaders, and everyone has the ability to be a leader wherever they are. And it's something that we all have to step up and do. You know, we've got to end exploitation. We've got to stop thinking about humanity first. You know, we're not the only ones here, and it's not enough to say, let's make it sustainable. Let's make it equitable. You know, let's make it a world not just for the people to be sustained. You know, let's do it for all life. It's a beautiful planet. You know, we didn't inherit it. You know, we belong to it, and we can take care of it in whatever we do. But arming ourselves with the knowledge of what we need to do in order to make it right, that's where it starts. You know, we need to build it back, and we need to nurture it. You know, fast fashion is an issue. Deforestation is an issue. Pick your issue, dive into it. But whatever you do, make it part of who you are and be that leader. Yeah, and check out the SDGs as well while we're at it.
Thanks, Brandon. Actually, before you escape, I would like to ask you, there's one rounding off question for each of the 3 of you before we go to the general question and answer, as to what is the role of cross-disciplinary understanding in tackling sustainability challenges. So if we could start with Brandon as what you see the role of cross-disciplinary understandings are in these challenges.
Sure, I kind of spilled into that with my wayward answer to the last question, but it has to be cross-disciplinary. You know, the problems that we're dealing with are not simple, straightforward problems anymore. They're becoming increasingly complex, and they require new ways of thinking and new ways of being. You know, and for that, we're all going to have to dig deep. We're all going to have to commit to making the most of this amazing life that we've been given by being the very best people we can be. Again, you know, we didn't inherit the earth, we belong to it. So, you know, whatever you do, you're going to have to bring multiple hats to the table. Be a good advocate, be a compassionate activist, be a thoughtful ally. Learn to communicate better than you can believe, and to engage and enroll others as a way of life. Speak on behalf of nature's wholeness and regeneration. Take that into whatever career you choose, or whichever career chooses you.
Thanks, Brandon. The word regeneration is a good one if we're thinking of alternatives to sustainability. But I would like to ask Kamala and then Christina what they think about the role of cross-disciplinary understanding in the challenges we're facing.
Definitely, this is climate change. It's all about interdisciplinarity and cross-disciplinarity, whatever word you want to use, multidisciplinary and non-disciplinary. That shouldn't be any disciplinary. So should talk about IO climate change. So environmental scientists have given up. They were claiming that climate is their topic, and they have given up now. They have said, okay, topic is everyone's. So that's a good thing to do. So I think public policy, where the skill set I come from, where I have been able to engage with government, engage with political leaders, so that they can become brand ambassadors of certain things. So creating brand ambassadorship and responsible brand ambassadors is very important. So management, economics, environmental science, and environmental studies in general, literature, because literature and narrative play very important. How do you do a drama and theater and attract attention of people? And also knowledge of the past, kind of in indigenous communities, what were their thinking about the nature, about the climate, about the environment. Maybe the climate change was not that grave or serious at that time, and in their memory, what is there. So trying to understand that. So kind of history, sociology, political science, even in law, so kind of interdisciplinarity, bringing each flavor. You may not actually specialize, become a master in law, but you understand what environmental law says. So kind of that. So kind of multiple subjects coming together and giving the sense of what climate change actually is doing and how climate change can be tackled as well. So it is interdisciplinary, and I see a lot of value in public policy and communication as well.
Thank you, Kamala. Christina, what do you think about cross-disciplinary understanding?
To be honest, I'm not sure if I can add much to Brandon and Kamala's responses. They were pretty perfect, but I'd like to say we cannot solve the climate crisis by just shouting at politicians alone, right? And look, don't get me wrong, I'm an activist, and I totally believe in the power of our collective, but we do need scientists. We need data analysts, we need politicians, we need marketing and communication managers who can articulate the message to the world. And we need leaders to make a change. And we need CEOs who lead by example and who create sustainable, purpose-driven businesses that put people before profits. And I think you require a cross-disciplinary education for that.
Thank you. Okay, so the next part of what we're doing today is a general question and answer. And so we're moving on to some questions that have been posted in the Q&A part of the webinar. And the first one we have is, aside from the clothing industry, are there any other industries that we wouldn't think of that are unsustainable? So like to pass this to the panel. Can anyone tell us about an industry that we might not have thought of that has some serious sustainability problems? Brandon, I see you took your mic off. You're gonna, yeah?
Sure. All of them? But you know, in all seriousness, everything needs to level up. And if you want to look at industries that really need help, agriculture, huge. Energy, huge. Um, yeah, those two right there. Go fix that.
Yeah.
That would be excellent. Those are the ones that come up immediately. But you know, keep going. Publishing. You know, you see a lot of cheap books now coming out of China, and they don't have the same requirements for sustainability that you'd find in other countries. So you get cheap, you know, and they're just mowing forests down. Forestry, there's another good one to tackle. My idea of an excellent forestry industry is one that doesn't cut down trees. Let's make that one real.
Yeah. Actually, I heard the other day about Bitcoin, and because there's so much activity that goes on with Bitcoin and it requires so many servers that are using so much energy, there's huge greenhouse gas emissions apparently from Bitcoin. So that was one that surprised me. Another question we have is what kind of jobs can I do with this degree? I think the panelists did cover quite a few of the different kinds of jobs. So many organizations have now either sustainability officers or sustainability managers or coordinators. And actually a lot of organizations, it's not just one person, it's a small team now, as well as more specific things like sustainability engineers. We don't offer engineering, but there are, you could be a sustainability marketing manager and be working on some of those things around the marketing angles of sustainability. Do any of the panel members have an answer to this question about the kinds of jobs that are possible with a degree in sustainability and environment mixed with the other degrees that we've got here at UTS, which have been business management, health, and Christine might hop in with the other ones that I've forgotten.
And economics?
I think we mentioned a few earlier, but yeah, anything from, you know, environmental scientists, health scientists, data analysts, who understand the trajectory we're on and who can help us, you know, or who can tell us how much less meat do we have to eat, how much less waste do we have to produce to mitigate climate change and keep temperatures below 1.5 degrees, and how can we meet the Paris, the climate targets, and how can we work in alignment with the global sustainability development goals. So there's a lot of metrics already out there, but I think we need more people who understand the data and who can also articulate the data to people who don't naturally understand data, or who can visualize the data in more user-friendly ways. Yeah, but and again, look, I've said it a few times. I think we need more politicians who understand climate change and who can implement legislation, because ultimately we really need leaders who who support business and individuals in that space.
Thanks, Christine. I just noticed that the time, and we were due to finish at 6:30. So Christine Aquino, or do you think we should finish up now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Kate, for facilitating that panel. And thank you to our panelists, Brandon, Kamala, Christina, and Sian, for your time. And thanks to those who've sat in and viewed. And it was really a wonderful panel highlighting how the different environmental, economic, and social dimensions of sustainability intersect, and really speak to the approach that's embedded in this degree. So if you do want to find out more information, here's a page you can look up, particularly about what it's like to study at the University of Technology, Sydney, and with the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, which is where this degree is housed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.